Hey Dad, happy Father's Day. Uh, I'm recording a video for my dad for Father's Day. And I wrote down some stuff I was going to say so I don't start rambling. But this is your 27th Father's Day. Your first Father's Day was on June 20th, 1993. I was born in January, so you've been celebrating Father's Day for 27 years, which is a long time. Uh, I guess I'm making this video to, even though I sent you a card that kind of very briefly went over these things, but just to, I guess, put it in more words, what you mean to me as a father, as a dad, someone that I've thankfully known my whole life. It's a lot of people that come from our neighborhood don't grow up with a father. You didn't really grow up with your dad, and I'm sure that impacted you as a child and as an adult and even to this day. So I'm grateful that I didn't really have to experience that. I always knew you. You were around. So I think that was an important part of both my upbringing and my siblings as well. So I'm just going to go through a couple things that I wrote down. So one, something I didn't write down, but I just thought about, I did write it down a little bit, but I guess sometimes I forget the fact that I'm a junior, which is, in some ways, it's a weird idea to be like knowing that someone else has your exact same name except for the junior or senior part. But something that I started doing recently, in particular, is like, I guess as I started to build my career as a scientist, I started to use junior more. And I guess that's a way to to honor you, I guess, to like let people know that there is someone before me that I want to make the connection between myself and that person known by including junior. So on my degree, my PhD, which you can't see, it has Elliott White Jr. And when I write papers, the name on there is Elliott White Jr. So just know that you're always there. And that gets to one of the things that I wrote down is about kind of who I am as a scientist. So I remember growing up, you took me around everywhere with you. And I asked a lot of questions. Some questions you knew the answer to, some questions you didn't know the answer to. But I think a critical part of that dynamic between us was when you didn't know the answer to the question, you would be honest and say, I don't know, which is important for me now as a scientist because it's as part of my job. I basically I'm trying to answer questions all the time. And sometimes people ask me questions, and it's an important part of your credibility as a scientist to be very, very upfront with people about what you do and don't know, so that they understand kind of the limits of your expertise and also kind of what you're best at. And that's also important because I think that kind of drove my curiosity as a kid to seek out answers to things that I didn't know and the people around me didn't know. That means that now I have to go on my own and look it up. I can't just rely on asking someone a question and them having an answer. And I guess related to that same idea, just kind of from what you see in movies and TV shows, there's usually this part where between a parent and a child where the child keeps asking question after question, and the parent eventually gets frustrated and is like, stop asking questions, leave me alone. But I don't ever feel like you did that to me. And I'm sure there were probably times where I was asking a lot of questions and you were probably getting annoyed, but I never felt like you told me to stop asking questions. And once again, that's something that's important for curiosity, is knowing that you can't ask too many questions. So those are important to me to this day as a scientist. And I think those exchanges, those interactions kind of help spur my curiosity. And my interest in science, I think, really grew from sitting with you, watching shows on PBS. So watching Nature and Nova and those different type of science-based shows, I think really got me more engaged with science because, you know where we come from. There are no scientists around. There's no family friend that we knew that was a scientist. We didn't have any scientists come to my school for career day as a kid, in elementary school. So the idea of a scientist or someone who spends their lives kind of studying the world, I don't think I really had a firm concept of what that was, but from watching those shows, I knew that there were things out there that I didn't see on a daily basis, and I could have a career kind of exploring those things. And those shows are still shows that I watch to this day, even though I don't watch them on TV. I watch them on the internet now. But I think watching those type of shows and like instilling that kind of, or maybe not instilling, but not deterring that curious nature in me led me down this path to where I'm a curious scientist who's looking stuff up all the time and trying to solve things that other people don't know, and I get paid to do that. So that's something that's like important to me that I had to reflect on to understand where that came from, and it came from you. The next thing is kind of mechanical thinking, I guess. So like I say, you took me around everywhere, and that includes like bring me with you to work as working in construction, and being that we didn't have a lot of money growing up, if there's a problem in the house, you had to fix it, and you would take me to Home Depot with you, and we get the supplies to fix it, and I help you fix it. So all that time, all those years, you were teaching me how to use power tools. Probably wasn't always as safe to let like a kid use a circular saw or a nail gun, but I never got hurt. I guess maybe luckily, fortunately. But these are all skills that like I feel very comfortable with. Like something goes wrong in a house, I'm sure I can fix it because I either have done it before, or because I feel comfortable using power tools. I feel comfortable going into the hardware store, walking up the aisles and like, okay, I can use this, I can use that, I can do this, I can do that, and coming up with a solution because I have years of experience working alongside you, seeing how you think through these things and you incorporating me in your thought process and building things. And so, yeah, that was very pivotal when I had my own house back in Florida, where, I mean, the house was in living condition, but there are things that we wanted to upgrade, and we definitely didn't have the money to pay a contractor or someone else to just come in and do all these things, because they're going to charge you not just for materials, but also their labor and all those things. But because I felt comfortable like doing certain things, I was able to do a lot of that myself, which helped us like really upgrade our house without having to spend the extra money on labor. We just had to spend money on the supplies. So that type of mechanical thinking also helped me out in my science. So I did a lot of field work for my research, and there were times where, or actually my advisor, one of our early conversations, he asked me, do I know how to use a power drill? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he was like, okay, because not many people know how to do that. And that's something that came up a lot as I did research. I had to use circular saws to cut PVC. I had to think on the fly while standing in the swamp how to build something using all of the materials that we had. So I think had I not had that experience as a kid, kind of learning how to think on the fly, learning how to use what you have access to still basically do the same thing you want, I don't know if I would have been as successful in those particular situations. And finally, cooking. So yeah, cooking is a very big part of our relationship. I basically was your sous chef for most of my childhood, where you were cooking and I was standing there watching or doing something, whether it was stirring the pot, at a certain point seasoning the things myself, tasting things to make sure they taste right, cutting stuff, just preparing other things as you did stuff. So yeah, there's never a time, I mean, there probably were, but I can't really recall you saying like, hey E, come watch me make this so you know how to make it. I was just there. And so a lot of my learning about cooking came from just being there and watching and being incorporated in the process. And it was never this is a teaching moment. I need you to watch me do this. And I guess that's something that was like very natural about our relationship, is that it almost never felt like you were explicitly like, here, come with me so I can show you how to do this thing because you need to know how to do it. It was just like I was there and you just showed me how to do it, or you just incorporated me into the process without it seeming very foreign to me. So that's cool. And then getting back to PBS, obviously we didn't have cable all the time when I was a kid, but on Saturdays, I think it was Saturdays, PBS would air cooking shows. So I remember sitting there watching those with you. There's Justin Wilson, the Cajun cook, that we watched a lot. And then there was an Asian guy. I can't remember his name, and I don't want to like be accidentally racist and make up some crazy Asian name. But there was him, and those are like the two. Oh, there was America's Test Kitchen that we watched. So yeah, I learned like cooking things from those shows as well. But I'd say like the foundation of my cooking knowledge came from cooking with you. So that's like important to me. So that's kind of all I wrote down. I don't want to start rambling, but I guess I just want you to know that you're very important to me, and that you have definitely left your mark in me. And as I'm saying, I just remembered something that I wrote down that I didn't read fully. But I think one personality trait that I definitely get from you is deals with parties. So like growing up, when we had parties, you were always the one cooking, whether that's like boiling crawfish or crabs or grilling. And obviously I was right there because I was helping you cook. And so because of that, and this is just a part of who you are, you're not like the most social person. So I think in some ways that was your way to like hang back and not be engaged with talking to everyone. But I think I picked that up because now, like when I have parties, like when I invite people over, I usually do all the cooking because one, I don't mind, and two, I like to hear people say, "Elliott, your cooking's good." So that's kind of narcissistic. But when we have parties, I'm like usually hanging out by the food, like making sure everyone's eaten, making sure the food's done, or like if we're grilling out in the backyard, I'm like the one there manning the grill. So yeah, that's like I guess a part of my personality when it comes to parties that I definitely get from you. So back to what I was saying before I went on that tangent, like you're very important to me, and I hope you know that, and I want you to understand that. Sad I can't be there this Father's Day to celebrate with you, but I'll be back home at some point. Hopefully coronavirus doesn't keep us locked in our house for many more months. But at the least, I'll be home for either Christmas or Thanksgiving. We haven't decided which holiday. I think I'm supposed to be with you all this Christmas. So I think I'll be home for Christmas, which is still 6 more months from now, but I might get back home sooner. So I love you. You mean a lot to me. I can't wait to see you soon. Take care of yourself. Peace.